everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Huck. Today we are talking about my plans for everything bookish, channel-wise, reading, book buying, everything for 2025. Year to year, my plans don't change drastically. I tend to just roll over a lot of the same plans or intentions for the year with adjustments. So I like to do this video every year anyway, even though there may not be huge changes, just as a little touch point to kind of reflect on the year, think about the next year and what I want to focus on for my channel, my reading, my book buying, all of those things. So here we are to do the one for 2025. So let's just get started. Let's start with channel, because that was the thing that I kind of changed the most for 2024. In 2024, I decided to post less and to have a more laissez-faire, a more relaxed approach to my posting schedule intentionally, because unintentionally that had kind of happened, and so I was trying to be more intentional about that approach to posting. And what I ended up with was a fairly inconsistent schedule, which was fine. That's what I kind of planned. I didn't post very many videos, which is also fine with like what my plans were. And I sort of fell into doing quarterly wrap-ups. That hadn't really been my intention, but it just sort of happened that I was doing quarterly wrap-ups, and there were some pros and cons to that. You know, some of the benefits of it were that it did give me more time to, you know, reflect on books after I read them. If I was binging a series, I had more time to complete the series before I had to wrap things up, so I could just do it all at once. And that was really great, and I liked that. And it also worked out well and kind of happened because I've sort of been in and out of a reading slump throughout the year, and so there were some months where I really wasn't reading much, so it just sort of worked out to lump a few months together if I was only reading like 2 books each month. But there were some cons to it as well. One of them being that by the end of the quarter, a lot of times I had a hard time remembering the details of a book that I read at the beginning of the quarter, like 3 months ago. So it just made it harder to review things. And then it also made things more difficult if there were months where I had read more books in a month, that then to lump together 3 months, it ended up just being a lot of books to review all at once, at least for me. I just get a little exhausted, a little out of breath trying to review a larger quantity of books. So I think that what I want to do in 2025 is maybe continue this experiment of trying to find like what is the right kind of cadence for me now, as opposed to like what I had been doing for the last however many years. But I think I want something that is maybe a little more frequent than what I've been doing in 2024, and having a maybe low commitment but slightly more structured approach to my filming and posting. One of the other things that I had kind of run into, or one of the like cons that I ran into with the approach that I've taken in 2024, is that it's really hard to maintain momentum with this more like relaxed and unstructured approach to posting. And so I would go these like long stretches of time of not posting anything because I didn't really have like a set space in my routine, in my schedule, that I was you know, filming, editing, posting, all of that, because that takes a lot of time and energy to do. And so I just like didn't have that as part of my routine, and so it was hard to kind of inject it at random into my regular routine. And then also I just didn't have the momentum of like, you know, kind of getting feedback from those videos. You know, sometimes I'll get on like posting consistently for a couple of weeks, and that is great momentum because like I post a video, I get comments, I get to talk to you guys about things, and then that creates momentum to like continue posting. But if I interrupt that, then I lose that momentum and that kind of, I don't know if feedback loop is the right term for it, but getting that feedback, which then contributes to greater momentum. So I'm not exactly sure what it's going to look like. I know I want to do wrap-ups more often than quarterly. I don't know if I'm gonna go back to monthly wrap-ups or if I'm gonna do maybe bi-monthly wrap-ups, so I do like every other month. 3 months is definitely too much. It's just hard to do all at once. So I think I'm gonna try for either monthly or bi-monthly wrap-ups. And then I want to more intentionally have a part of my routine where I can film and edit and post videos. At the moment, I'm thinking what it's gonna look like is I may choose like one weekend a month, you know, set like, okay, first weekend of the month, every month, that is when I batch film a bunch of stuff and then I kind of edit it throughout the month. And that's usually, like I usually batch film anyway, but I didn't have like a set time when I did that. So I may just give myself a little routine of being like, well, the first weekend of the month is always my filming weekend. So like one of those days I have to film something for the month. So it still may not result in me posting like every single week, but I just want something a little more frequent, a little more consistent, and more intentionally a part of my routine to maintain that momentum and make it a part of my life. I think I may still hold off on reviewing some series until I finish them if I am intending to like binge through a series, because I like being able to kind of review it as a whole, if that makes sense, like timing wise. Another thing I have been thinking about is that I would like to do more recommendation videos. This is something that a few years ago was on my like plans or goals for the year. And then I had like a year or two where I did do a few recommendation videos, but I kind of fell out of doing them. And I always like them. I always kind of forget to do them, but I always like them. So I definitely want to get back into doing a few more recommendation videos. If you have any ideas of, you know, types of like themes for recommendations that you would like for me, let me know in the comments, because I would love some inspiration. But I really like doing recommendation videos and I just want to do more of them in 2025. Next, let's talk about book buying. My book buying in this last year has really changed from previous years, and I like the way that it's changing, and so I want to kind of more intentionally like continue that change. I feel like doing things intentionally is like the theme, I guess, of this year, because I keep using that word. But in the last year, I haven't been buying nearly as many books as I have in the past, but also I have been more consistently reading books very soon after buying them. I'll talk about this more in another video, but for the books that I've bought in 2024, the majority of them I have actually read in 2024, and very few of those books are then moving on to, are like unread and moving on to my TBR into the next year, which is kind of unusual for me, partially because in previous years I just bought such a volume of books that wasn't really possible. Also, I don't know, somehow I just ended up not reading books at in the same year that I was buying them. So then I would just keep adding more and more and more to my TBR. But I haven't really been doing that this year, and I want to continue that trend. So two of the things that I have been doing and I want to continue doing are, one is being more intentional about the books that I am pre-ordering. And this is something I think has come up in previous years that it's so easy to get so excited about new releases each year, but I do want to be more intentional about the books that I am pre-ordering and buying. I don't want to not pre-order any books because, like, one, it's fun, I like doing that, but also it supports authors. So I'm still going to, but probably to a lesser extent. Although honestly, 2025 has some great books coming out, so like there are gonna be a good number of pre-orders, but they're going to be very well thought out pre-orders, and that's what matters. And then the other thing that I have been doing and I want to continue is only buying books, with the exception of pre-orders, that I am planning to read in the near future. I think that it's very easy, to get in the habit of just like getting so excited about books and buying books that you want to read someday, but don't necessarily have like immediate plans to read. And I'm not knocking that approach. If that brings you joy, like, do it. But for me, I feel like I just end up with books kind of piling up, and then sometimes if they sit on my TBR too long, I kind of lose interest after a while. I also don't like having a huge TBR. For me, when my TBR reaches like 70 to 75 like physical books, I start to feel overwhelmed. So I like to keep it a little bit on the smaller side, at least by BookTube standards. I think that that is on the smaller side. But in 2024, I have been pretty consistent about buying books only when I intend to read them soon, or at least when I'm buying backlist books. So this is excluding my well thought out pre-orders, but for backlist books, those ones I want to only buy them when I'm intending to read them soon. And of course, I'm sure there will be exceptions, and there are times where I just like get too excited about something and can't resist buying it even if I don't have plans for when I'm gonna read it, and that's fine. But I just want like the majority to be this way, so that I don't end up with like a huge pile of books at the end of the year that are unread. Related to that, I also am going to be bringing back my TBR Clear Out project, which is something that I did a couple years ago. It may have been like 2021 or something like that. That is a project that I did to look at my physical TBR and look at what were the books that have been on my TBR shelf the longest, and get those off my shelf one way or another, whether it was reading the books, DNFing the books, admitting to myself I'm never going to read them and just unhauling them. However they left was clearing out the oldest books off of my shelf. And the purpose of that was, one, to just manage the size of my TBR, but two, to kind of refresh my TBR and keep it as focused on like the things that I was most excited about right now as possible, instead of letting things just languish for years over and years. So those are my plans for book buying. Now, for reading, I am definitely rolling over a lot of these plans for the year. So I'm going to be setting my my reading goal in terms of like number of books to 40 books this year. That's what I had in 2024, and I feel like that was a decent amount. I'm hoping, of course, that I read more than that. I definitely read a lot fewer books in 2024 because I've been in and out of a reading slump, but I am hoping that in 2025 I will far exceed my 40 book goal. But I am going to be setting it at 40 because I feel like that is definitely like a safe number for me. I will certainly be able to reach 40, hopefully way more. Some other things that are rolling over, I want to definitely make time to reread, because that is something that I have been doing the last 2 years and I've been loving it. Because I've been kind of slumpy, rereading has been great, you know, revisiting old favorites, things that I know I will love that are tried and true, have been fantastic. I've been loving rereading stuff, and so I want to continue making time for that in 2025. Another thing I want to make sure I keep doing is binging series. I haven't been the most successful at that in 2024, but I have a few series that I have binge read and I have been really enjoying it. And so I want to definitely keep doing that in 2025. And then the last thing that I want to make sure I'm doing with my reading in 2025 is making it a part of my routine. I feel like that is also a theme now in my plans, is like making things part of my routine, because I think that is something that I kind of lost and then I have been getting back into the habit of recently, and I just want to continue doing that in the coming year. You know, I think that for a long time, reading was very much a part of my routine. It was not like structured in any way, but it just was like very common, very easy for me to make time to read. And it was just part of my routine in a very organic way. The last 2-ish years, honestly, probably more than that, but really the last 2 years, I have been kind of slumpy. I haven't been reading nearly as much. I've had whole months at a time where I didn't read anything, and I don't like that. I like reading, of course, but I think that what happened is that it kind of fell out of my routine. But in the last few months, I've been bringing it back into my routine in a more specific way instead of the kind of organic way that I maybe had previously. But one of the things that I have been doing the last few months, which I really liked, is having it be a part of my morning routine. I've always been a reading at night kind of person. Like, I'd read it kind of any time of the day, but I would usually think of like night before bed. That's my big like reading time. But I have a much more like defined morning routine now, especially with my dog Merlin, because he has a morning routine that I have to follow. And so with his morning routine, it kind of imposes a morning routine on me, which I can then more easily fit reading into. That means that there's at least 20 minutes every day that I read my book. So if I do nothing else, I will still make a little bit of progress and finish that book eventually. I also really like having this as part of my morning routine because I've found that I feel like it really sets me up for the day well. I often am someone who struggles with maintaining routines. I think that I do really well with routines. Like, routines are very good for me, but I have a really hard time maintaining them. However, because this routine is tied to Merlin's morning routine, I think it will be easier for me to maintain long term because it is not dependent on just me and like, do I feel like waking up early enough to read and all of this, because I have to wake up at a certain time for his routine. So I think that will also help me maintain this. So those are my bookish plans for 2025. I would love to know, do you have any plans or goals or intentions going into 2025 for your reading? Is there anything that you've done in 2024 that you are really wanting to pull into 2025 and going, this was a good idea, let me keep doing this? I would love to know how you are planning for the coming year. But thank you all for watching, and until next time, bye.